Hello, and welcome to Gardening with the Gardeners, a podcast where we discuss our favorite plants, gardens, landscape design, and all things horticulture, with just a touch of our crazy homestead lifestyle thrown in.
I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Boone Gardner, a horticulturalist, landscape designer, and fourth-generation owner-operator of Boone Gardner Landscape.
And I'm Hope Gardner, Matt's wife, a horticulturalist at our local county extension office, as well as a landscape designer with a family business. And together, we make up Gardening with the Gardeners.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yay, we're back.
We're back.
Talking about one of my favorite things again.
Every episode's your favorite things.
Well, that's true. I kind of like plants. What can I say?
Episode 15.
I know, that's exciting.
We're moving along.
Slowly but surely. It's like the little train that could.
There you go.
So,
lots of updates.
tell them the big update.
Oh, the goofy. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's spring.
Oh, no, I was talking about another injury.
Exactly. It's spring, and
It's
here we
spring,
have.
and we're busy, and you know, I've 9 or 10 weeks. I guess this will be the 10th week off the knee surgery, and doing good. And
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much back to, almost back to normal.
Yes.
And then you were teaching in a master gardener class late last Thursday night.
So no, it was Wednesday night. I was at had a class at the extension office, so I was there late, till like 9:30. And
she's like, I think we discussed before, she's absconded of our son's bedroom.
It's got the best light
for plants since he's at UK. And so she's got all these plants in his room, his window. And she also has grow lights set up because you've got a bunch of seedlings started and other things going on. So I thought I'd be nice. I was kind of straightening up the kitchen, doing the dishes, all this. I was like, okay. And so I was like, let me go off and turn these lights off. And I actually put the animals away outside and back to the schedule, actually doing things, and went to turn off the grow lights. And of course, it's completely dark in the hallway after that from our kids' room. There's 3 steps, whatever.
3 steps up.
3 steps up. And you're going to say the boxes have been there for months, and they probably have, but they're not normally there. But
so these are boxes that are supposed to go in a storage area, but there's things that have to be moved.
We're making a short story long, but I come up the stairs, I kick the box. I think, okay, I stubbed my toe, no big deal, whatever. But the problem is I look down, I'm barefoot, and my little pinky toe is sticking out sideways away from my foot.
It's a 90-degree angle.
Yes, and it kind of freaked me out. So I looked online, tried to text my nurse sister, but she was tied up for the evening. And I saw that you're supposed to buddy tape your toe. The same thing happened to our daughter, although she really didn't explain it to us that well until after the fact. But so I buddy taped the pinky toe, and it was hurting bad, but I went to bed, and they were like, went to immediate care the next day. They're like, oh yeah, you broke it really bad. You need to go to a podiatrist. And I'm thinking, and you're thinking, because I'm texting you all these results, that we're going to have to do another surgery.
Thank goodness we didn't.
Urgent care kind of scared me, but the podiatrist said, no, it's luckily you set it good with the buddy tape and keep doing that. But now I'm in a little boot on my right foot, the opposite leg of the other knee surgery, which is left.
And I'm back to doing all the farm. So
I did
that's
mow.
Okay.
I did mow today.
Yes, you did. You sat on the lawnmower, and we got that done. So I am very thankful for that.
But it's ridiculous. You can't make this up. I mean, life is so comical.
That's life. Things happen.
Yes. But spring is going strong. We got 80-something degrees a day. We're supposed to get like 80. Oh, and over the weekend got real hot too.
Yes, it did. And they're talking, I think Wednesday is supposed to be like really hot.
87 or something.
That is crazy for April.
It's making all the plants grow like crazy, and the animals and the bugs. I mean,
everything's out.
I mean, we noticed this a while back, because of course they always come out early. But little warning to everybody: be sure and make sure you're paying attention to ticks, because they've been out for several weeks. You got those horrible little bitty ones too. They
call them the little seed ticks.
Seed ticks, because a lot of times it's like a nymph stage or whatever. But
yes. They're just hatching.
They're so small, but they will get you. I mean,
yeah, you have to be really careful with those.
And then we were at a job site today, and of course everything's totally overgrown. This bed this job that I did a design for in the wintertime, and I was like, oh, all this ground cover is going to come out. And of course now the ground cover's like, it's euonymus. It's like 2 feet tall, and there's poison ivy all through it now.
Yeah, that's another one you have to be really careful. I mean, poison ivy can be active even in the wintertime as far
Yes.
as the oils.
Oh, yes.
But when it's young and it just starts growing, then yeah, you can really get it good. So, I mean, there's lots of things that are going on outside. It's exciting, but yeah, you do have to be careful with a couple of those.
You're busy in the greenhouse.
The greenhouse is almost full.
Yeah, you're gonna. I thought it was a decent sized greenhouse when we got it, but
Well, I'm just going to put some tables in there so we can, double up. But yes, there's lots of stuff. I've got lots of annuals for cutting. I've got, of course, lots of dahlias. I've got some of the tropicals that we were able to move out from the garage that we were storing them in over winter, waiting for the greenhouse to be built. So they're now in there, leafing out and looking really nice. So I have to say I need to spend about probably 3 weeks in one day, meaning 3 weeks of worth of work being done in one day to get all the beds prepped and ready to go. Because, I mean,
Trust me.
yeah, today I even had a client call in. She was asking about her soil sample results because she's getting really antsy to plant. And so we had a nice long conversation and we both laughed because I'm right there with her. I am so ready to start putting stuff in the ground. I want to start, seeding my zinnias and my
And it
cosmos.
feels like it should be because
And the ground temperature is getting warm.
Oh, it's very warm.
I have not checked to see exactly what the ground temperature is right now, but it would need to be over 60 to be, kind of safe to plant tomatoes out. So even though, our air temperature is, comfortably in the 70s, 80s, I'm not sure how the ground temperature is looking. I know that there's a lot of people that are going to go ahead and start planting. If you do that, just make sure that if we have one of those crazy last minute snowstorms that we've had in May, that you have a way to either cover your crops or take them inside.
Yeah, that is the time to cover in that situation.
Yes.
Or protect it somehow. Yeah, it's wild. I was mowing this afternoon. I was admiring your stumpery. We have many shade gardens, but I mean, I can't believe everything is up there. I mean, all the ferns, obviously the hostas.
Oh, the ferns look great.
Yeah, the pulmonaria. That looks spectacular. And then the variegate Jacob's ladders coming out, and then your epimedium are all looking great.
I know, that's so exciting.
It looks really good. Well, like we said, it's episode 15, and I guess we'll call it something cute like divide and conquer.
I like that. Yes.
Veni, vidi, vici. Little Latin for you.
Yeah, you're so good at Latin.
Caesar, I came, I saw, I saw, conquered. Yeah, Caesar's quote. So we're going to talk about dividing perennials, and spring is an excellent time for doing that. And people don't realize that. And this is a great and easy way to save tons of money and
get more plants.
Get more plants and spread them around your place or give them to your friends.
Well, one of the things that makes it really easy is that you're not fighting all of the top growth right now.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how easy it is to go ahead and get them started because we'll have the whole growing season to establish a good root system before winter. Mm-hmm. So, but we'll get into more of that later, I know.
Well, and it's fun, too, because our son's taking plant propagation at UK right now. And so, one of the first things you learn about is obviously asexual propagation is the easiest way to do it. And this is one of them. So you're just taking a part of that plant and getting a whole nother plant out of it. You're dividing.
You're dividing them. But especially like with hostas, when you look, you can almost divide all the way down to one shoot.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you get a nice clump of hostas, you could get 20, 30 plants out of those, out of a full-grown hosta in the bed. Mm-hmm. So, it's really a great opportunity, to divide these out, place them, like you said, around other areas of your yard or share them with your neighbors because you can get free plants.
Absolutely. And, and not just, so it's not just dividing is important because of you want more plants. Obviously, that's a great byproduct of it, but also it's
there is a scientific, reasoning.
There's a why to it, and there's, it's important because actually dividing them is actually very good and it increases health and vigor within the plant.
Because I know in one of our other podcasts we talked about, especially with like ornamental grasses, how they die out in the center.
Yes, you get that dreaded dead center part of the donut or what do you want to call it.
Yes, that would be a perfect example.
About as good as it gets, textbook.
Yes, of why you want to dig that whole clump up, whether you have to get a chainsaw or just a shovel, depending on how big that plant is, but divide it out so you can almost divide it like, a pie. And so, you're taking all those little clumps around the edges and just taking and making new plants.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then, give them like 2 years and they'll be maybe not the exact same size, but they'll
Oh,
fill in.
it's
and
amazing
look.
how fast, yeah, because you get rid of the dead part of the plant's not performing, that dead or woody middle section, and then once you get rid of that and you divide it, you increase vigor, and the plant grows a lot better. So, um,
You get a happier plant, you get happier blooms.
exactly.
Well, I mean, I think it's also important, to know kind of which perennials are going to be the ones. Obviously, when you see something, like hostas that are too big, which you really don't want hostas to get so massive that it takes, like, you can't get them out of the ground. That's when you've gone too long. You want to make sure that they're still manageable. In the same way with your ornamental grasses, but and those two plants, they're really obvious. But sometimes you've got other plants that maybe you don't know when the right time to divide is. And I think it's really important to know, like, some are better to divide in the spring and then some may be better in the fall.
Yes.
So I think anything that's going to bloom in the summer months is really, you want to divide those in the spring. Anything that's blooming in the spring, you want to wait until after it blooms, because you don't want to lose that bloom or those buds from kind of a transplant, shock almost. So
Like
really,
iris.
yeah, I would not do irises until fall
And we
for
can
that
come back
exact
and we'll
reason.
probably I guess we'll do a whole list at the end, maybe of like, we'll talk about some of the good candidates now, and then come back and do like some of the ones to wait on. And
Oh, definitely so. Because we've already kind of hit the grasses, we've kind of hit the hostas, and there's tons more.
yeah, so ornamental grasses, obviously we're talking about anything from your dwarf fountain grasses, miscanthus, all of them.
Yes.
And even though larapi is not a grass,
Yeah, it kind of looks like it.
it does, but it's not.
It's not,
But I include it in that category. I mean, feel free to chop at it. We talked about that before. Chop at it and get lots of plants out of it. And move
Yes.
it, And other ground covers that would be good, like your lily of the valley. That's easy to pop up.
Well,
It is a spring bloomer, though.
it's a
So I
spring
guess
bloomer. In
I
fact,
guess you
it's
could wait.
blooming
But it's
right
so,
now.
It's so vigorous. You could. I mean, I feel
Oh my
like
gosh, it's a thug.
You could do it now, or you could do it later. I mean, obviously, it's better to do it later. But
It's the prettiest, daintiest, delicious smelling thug I've ever met.
It takes over the garden.
Which I have to say, yes, I walked in today and the lily of the valley is blooming. It is such a heavy perfume walking in the kitchen door.
Yeah.
Which is why I planted it there. But yes, you can almost divide that, move it anytime. Just make sure you give it lots of space to grow.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned hostas. Obviously,
Yep.
that's a really easy one, and I guess we'll use that as a good example. So, like, you take your clump, and so if you want to make, like you said, you want to make a manage. If it's a huge clump, and you can't manage that, you can actually just cut that in the ground in half, or however small size it's manageable enough for you.
Now, can I add something right there?
Yes.
And this is one of my little soapboxes.
Sharp tools.
Make sure your tools are
Sharp tools.
Yes, because
I was teasing our guys today. I was like, "You all got to sharpen your tools because we're having a hard time with something." So.
Well, it's like trying to cut it with a butter knife.
It is. So it's 100%. If you have a sharp spade,
Yes,
you literally come in there, and this is what I said before. You cannot be afraid of that. This is all these. You hack at them. You literally go in there and just chop, 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 chop around the outer perimeter of the plant, and then. Sometimes you can divide it in the hole. A lot of times I'll pull it out, put it on top of the ground, and then use that as a leverage to really slice them in half. Then slice the other half into
guillotine them.
Yeah, and just keep cutting them. And you're going to get some parts that fall off, and you're going to think I'm hurting this plant. And you're not, and you'll see real quick the roots and how the whole.
So if you cut
structure.
a section of leaf, and there's nothing, like there's no roots or there's
it's
no
just
crown,
the shoot. Yeah.
just throw it away. It's okay. Make sure that you have a good crown, a good set of roots, and it will show up new leaves. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And all these are the ornamental grasses, the hostas, daylilies, they're extremely forgiving.
Daylilies are very forgiving.
I mean,
yes.
Both those. I mean, we've clumped them up and sometimes left them on top of the ground over
We do have some in the kind of in a shady area that were above ground.
And they just do
but
fine.
they've rooted themselves in. And because, daylilies do bloom in the summer months, you can do it now. I wouldn't wait until the end of June and expect a good set of buds.
It's good to do it now.
But do it now. Yeah.
And then, the reason, like we talked about before, and this is a perfect candidate. So if a lot of times your daylilies may not bloom as well, they may need dividing.
They get too crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they need room to grow. And if they get too crowded, like with any of the perennials, they're gonna stop blooming because it's just too crowded. The insides are not getting enough sunlight to be able to produce buds.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of times we forget that they actually do need to be divided. It's not just plant them and then leave them forever.
Exactly. The black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia, they're fast
They
spreaders.
are so
But
fast.
they'll kind of stall out. They benefit from division. I mean, obviously we're
Yes.
talking about
Well,
cone
a lot of
flowers.
times you'll see when they bloom, it'll bloom on the outside edge of the
Mm-hmm.
plant, and the inside isn't getting enough sunlight, and so they don't bloom. So yes, you do definitely want to divide those.
Cone
Echin-
flowers,
yep,
echinacea.
echinacea is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I always put, those are always the. It's kind of like the cooks talk about the Holy Trinity as far as seasonings. The three, like garlic, salt, and pepper, or whatever. It's like, to me, like, you try the Rudbeckia, purple coneflower, autumn joy sedum, probably, or something, or Shasta daisy. But
Oh
as
yeah.
far as just, let's say, a combination, so and all those are easy dividers. I mean, we did it with the sedums
Okay, so I have to say you dug up the autumn joy sedum out of the garden to make room to put the greenhouse, which they had to come up.
2 years ago,
They're still sitting above ground.
and they're doing fine, even with chickens and peacocks pecking on them and everything
Even
else.
with the frost and the snow, they're sitting above ground on their
Yeah,
side.
they're ready to. They're like, divide us more and put us back in the ground. They're ready.
They're yes, and we do need to put them in the ground. We got to find the right place though.
But that's a perfect example. I mean, don't be scared of these plants, because you can pop them up, manhandle them. I mean, obviously you don't want to hurt them, but don't be afraid to really get in there and work them, because they're tough.
Yes, and they'll only be better for it.
Yes. Another great one to think about is the phlox paniculata, the taller phlox types.
Yes.
Because that's going to help with, they're notorious, especially in Kentucky, for getting
Oh, powdery,
powdery
mildew.
mildew.
Give them room to breathe.
Yeah,
You've
kinda
got
air
to
'em out a
get
little
good
bit.
airflow through those
Yeah.
things. Yes. So okay,
And one of my favorite plants,
Nepeta.
catmint.
Yes.
It's another great candidate, and it responds well to it. And
Well, because it'll also die back
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So that's another one that even after it blooms, give it a good haircut and it'll flush back out. So
and you mentioned or spring bloomers, and then obviously we talked about iris, waiting on those.
Yeah.
Peonies, obviously wait on those. And peonies are
Definitely.
more. We'll probably do a whole episode on peonies later. 'Cause
that
they're
is probably going to be our next episode.
more, and taproot plants like Asclepias, like butterfly weed. You probably want to wait on those.
Oh, definitely so. Yeah. When is the right time to divide these that we've just been talking about?
Good question. So in an
Yes.
ideal world, which always doesn't happen,
Well, it's gardening.
and don't let that deter you, because we always give these things, and always, it's easy to read these things. Oh, you need to do this day, with the perfect wind, the perfect breeze, and all this,
Okay,
temperatures.
so the perfect situation would be on a cooler, overcast day,
Yep. So it's not super
so
hot.
it doesn't stress the plant.
Mm-hmm. But I've done it plenty of times
Oh
on
my
sunny, hot
gosh.
afternoons, because I had to, or we have to for a job.
Exactly.
Like and life goes on.
Well, and now that I have, a job off of the farm, I'm gone usually Monday through Friday. When I get home in the evenings, we've got to feed animals. I might get to water, the garden real quick, and then it's, fix dinner, go to bed. So my weekends, Saturday is usually the only day that we have in the garden.
So you may be dividing plants when it's hot and sunny.
It might be 110 degrees at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and if that's the only time I have to do it, you know what? Throw us some extra water on that plant and let's go.
But ideally, if you can do it when it's cool and overcast, obviously that makes sense.
Exactly.
If you can, water the plant beforehand, or at least, you don't want the soil muddy because it's hard to work with. But if it's moist, it's easier. It's easier on you. It's easier on the plant.
So ideally, water the day before.
Yeah.
Let that plant absorb as much water out of the soil as it
And then
can.
dry out a little bit, and then
Let the soil dry out just a little bit. So, like you said, you're not, in a swamp. And then dig it up.
It's-
So the day before would be best, but you want to have that as much water in the system of that plant so that it can rebound easier.
Yeah, it won't wilt down as much, because you will, when you do this, some of them wilt down more than others, and you'll notice that, and it'll kind of freak you out a little bit. But if you can water them beforehand and help prevent some of that, and get that water built up in the cells, it helps a lot.
And then water after.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Water, water, water. Okay, so here's another thing that I really kind of preach about a little bit more than what when I teach planting a tree or anything else. A lot of people will just plant the tree in a hole that's the same size as the root ball. That's fine. But research has showed that if you dig a hole that is wider and maybe not as deep, the plant responds better. Because if you plant, you dig a big hole, it's too deep for your plant, you put a lot of soil in the bottom, that soil is loose and that's going to settle out, and that plant will end up sinking down lower than it should be. So really what you want to do is make sure that you only dig it as deep as you need, but do it twice as wide because you want those roots to grow out and get established. And if you could see me over the radio or over the podcast, you're going to see my arms are flapping out wide and not deep.
When you've gone on your plant, you kind of skipped a step here because we're talking about digging them to pop them out of the ground.
Oh, well.
You already got
I'm already
so
on
into
planting.
Okay. So you want to dig. Sometimes they'll say kind of dig wide when you're trying to plant them. Obviously, we're trying to dig them out.
Because you want to get all those roots.
You want to get as much as possible, but at the same time, I mean, I'll come. It just depends. Also, years of knowing what to do, I guess you kind of. But yeah,
yeah, if you take it for granted because you've done it forever.
Yeah. So, but if you're doing it for the first time and you're not used to it, trying to dig one of these plants out, again, sharp spade.
Yes.
Is better than a shovel. If you only have a shovel, that's fine too. But sharp shovel will do it. Spade sometimes make it easier, and it's also preference, whatever you're comfortable with. But you want sharp. Come around it, do a nice little perimeter cut circle around it, and then you're going to lift it out. A lot of times with that shovel or spade, kind of pry it out.
Yes.
And then go from there.
You're going to take that shovel kind of underneath and just kind of wedge up and just kind of try, like you said, pop it straight up out of the ground.
But make sure you cut all the way around.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those roots will they'll hold on. And then even then, some of the ones down below you want to kind of scoop underneath to get them out. And then once you do that, you want to lift it out of the ground. Shake off or knock off the loose soil that's just kind of in the way. And then you want to look for your...
You don't want to bare root them.
No.
You do want to keep some soil around the roots.
Yeah.
But yeah, if some of it falls off, it's
if you get...
if it's too heavy, then yes.
And if you go way wide out, like 6, 12 inches, you're going to have a lot of extra soil. So
that's too far.
That's too far.
So then you're going to divide it.
You're going to divide it, look for a natural separation of points if possible. But I mean, you'll kind of see it. Or you just start cutting, like we talked about. Mm-hmm. If daylilies and hostas have a real fibrous root system, you can use a knife. So this is where if you haven't purchased a soil knife, I'd highly recommend one. I think you would too.
Oh, definitely so.
They're great. And a lot of times they'll have a sharp edge and then the serrated edge. Serrated edge is awesome when you're dividing perennials and grasses, especially grasses.
Okay, so what is the Japanese name for those soil knives?
Hori hori.
Hori hori, yeah.
Hori hori knife.
So yeah, if anybody's looking for a hori hori knife, that's what they're talking about.
They're awesome.
Yep.
And that's where you get in there aggressive. And we'll do the same thing when we're planting them. So if we're planting an ornamental grass, especially if it's late in the season, it's been in that pot from the nursery all season growing. And so it's pot bound. And so it's just like lifting a grass out of the ground. All those roots are thick and need to be separated.
Yes.
So we'll actually take a soil knife or a spade and just aggressively cut the bottom at least like 4 different directions, kind of split it open.
Well, I think, that also goes along with any time I'm planting, whether it's annuals or perennials or anything. When you take it out of the pot and the roots have just grown and they're the same exact shape as the pot that you took them out, I always, whether it's, my pruners, my hori hori knife, even my hands, just really rough those roots up because you want them to start growing out into the soil and not just continuing in that same shape of that container. This
is the same thing with the dividing the perennial. It's the exact same thing.
Yes.
You're just literally taking it out of the ground, and the ground's your pot instead of being a plastic pot. So that's why we started about dense crowns, obviously like the spade or the saw. Yeah, you can do like even a hand saw if you don't have the hori hori knife or.
Yep, they will work too.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we kind of talked about with the hostas, you can divide those down to like, if you think about a hosta, 3 crowns. You can take them down as small as you really need to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sometimes you can end up with like 20 extra hostas.
When you look at I should have mentioned this earlier, but kind of inspect it. as you get more practice this and you know what you're looking for, but you can kind of tell the difference between a bad unhealthy root system and a healthy one. And so this is a good time to kind of look for pests or problems, or you'll see sometimes like little holes and things or rotted areas. Take all that out. If it's not like nice white or whatever the natural color of that plant is, kind of that,
Well, and this is also a good time because we talked about with the ornamental grasses, if they're dead in the center and you cut that down into like pie shapes or whatever, cut the dead out because that's not going to do the plant any good. So go ahead and, cut any dead, dying, broken, any of that off of the new plant that you're going to plant. You want a fresh start.
Yes. And, they'll say every division should have obviously healthy roots, nice little root system attached to it. And then you'll ideally want 2 or 3 shoots or growing points. And that is ideal to give it a little more vigor. But like Hope's saying, some are so vigorous, like the hosses or something, you might be able to just do one little pup when you get used to it. But it's better to have, a nice little clump.
What your expectation is for rebound.
That's true too.
Like if you want to have a, smaller planting, then, go with that one. It'll fill out. If you want something that looks a little bit more, thicker and more lush, go for that 3 to 5. But definitely, I think it would be best to take it down to that 3 to 5 range.
Oh, yeah. And that ties in nicely to the next, obviously once you do this and you got your little plants, you're going to replant it. And so it can go back in the garden, or you may have some extra 1-gallon pots or 4-inch pot, whatever you're going to use. You could pot those perennials up too and then save them for somebody else, or, whatever you're going to do with them.
So in the perfect world of gardening, you're not going to do what we do.
Oh, leave the clump sitting on top of the ground.
Yes. This is one of those things that you do what I say, not what I do.
We're
really hard on plants that way, because life gets in the way. And so I think you have to do, cut some slack, and understand that, life is what it is. But it's best for the plant itself not to leave it above ground for 2 years, like we've just said that we have done. It's better to go ahead and plant it as soon as you divide it. They will bounce back quicker.
They will bounce back. I mean,
sometimes you don't even notice the plant that has been divided.
It's really rewarding because you'll be amazed at how fast. So obviously, like, don't let those roots dry out too much.
No.
Hopefully you're doing it all in one sequence, like we're talking about, and you're putting it right back in the ground, or you're putting other new holes, or you're moving them to a different spot in the yard, and then you're just going to plant them back at the original depth they were. Exactly.
Yes, don't do them any deeper.
And if you need to go a little higher, that's better than going deeper, but not too high.
Well, I think if we do it in the spring where those roots have a chance to get established, then you're not going to have that heaving in the wintertime, which is just that freeze and thaws, and it just kind of pushes those root systems up out of the ground.
And that's why we always talk about trying to not put perennials, like 1 gallon or smaller plants, in the ground too late, because that freeze thaw cycle just pushes them right out.
And so doing it now, you avoid that problem. And so that's another reason why it's so important to do it now. And you can kind of get away with having them a little higher by doing it now, because those roots will get established and it'll hold it in the ground before winter.
Well, and then if you're doing it right, you're going to come back and mulch it.
Of course, you have to mulch.
Yeah, so then you're going to come back and put your 2 to 3 inches of mulch on top, like we talked about before, and then water them in real good.
Water.
And then you've divided your perennials.
So I also like to say that as soon as you divide them, you really don't want to give them a high nitrogen fertilizer.
No, let them relax.
Let them get established. Let the roots get established. Don't push a bunch of fertilizer on them, because you're really going to stress the plant out because you've just cut the roots. If you have something that starts to look wilty or not, it doesn't bounce back as quickly, you have to think that you just took a lot of that root system off. And there's always a good balance between the top growth, your leaves, and the amount of root system you have. So if it does look really wilty and stressed, it doesn't hurt to trim the top of that leaf structure, cut that back just a little bit to give those root system a chance to catch up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. One good point too is if you're popping these perennials out and they're not performing very well in that area, or once you've dug up that area and you see that the soil is maybe lacking and not very good, this is a good time to amend that soil and kind of fix some problems before you put them right back in the same bad situation. Or if it's poor draining and you maybe need to move that perennial, it's not a perennial that actually likes wet feet, where some do. Kind of pay attention to those kind of little cultural items that.
So if you go to dig that perennial out and you dig a hole and then you see that there's water standing in the bottom of that hole, you've got really heavy clay. It should not be standing water in those areas. Most of the perennials, now there are some of the like irises that are do, really well with kind of a wet foot kind of area. But, and those are not the German, the big bearded iris. Those are more the Japanese iris. But, most of those plants around here are not going to want to be in a hole that does not drain water.
Yeah. So you'll want to amend that or figure out what's going on.
So you need to dig that hole a lot bigger and amend the soil, a lot more soil than what you would expect for the size of the perennial that you're putting in there. You don't want to create a bowl.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah.
So
we talked about, that's kind of it's really not a hard it's super easy actually once you know what you're doing, and kind of, again, it's not being afraid of it, I think.
No, and I think people don't think about doing it in the spring because the plants are just coming up.
Yeah. It seems a little counterintuitive to bother them, or,
But it makes it so much easier to do it in the spring because, you're not dealing with that whole weight of the plant.
Well, and you can see
where, leaves.
You've got enough to see what it is, but not like, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
So, I guess we kind of listed all these. I guess we'll just do a quick list and summary, maybe of like great ones that divide now, and then some others, and maybe a little more work or whatever. But the real durable, forgiving ones that you and I would think of for early season divisions, astilbes, asters,
bee balm,
another garden thug. Any of the garden thugs, you can pretty much assume it's going to be divided now, or almost any time for that matter.
Well, and the nice thing about dividing it now with bee balm is that when it does bloom, you have blooms all over the yard.
You will.
Because it's going to give it time. It'll bounce back quicker.
Gaillardia, blanket flower, bellflower campanula, your garden mums.
Coreopsis, and all the ferns.
Yes. And you wouldn't think about that a lot of times with the ferns. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll actually bounce back.
Your hardy ferns, like autumn fern, lady fern.
They don't bounce back very well if you try to do that in the fall. You really want to do ferns, especially in the spring.
I don't know how much more we could. There's tons, but Heliopsis, false sunflower, heuchera, the coral bells.
Yes, coral bells.
Yeah.
Because we've got some really pretty coral bells here underneath the maple tree that we can.
And that's one of our favorite plants for the shade. You and I love shade gardens. We're kind of obsessed with them. But
thank goodness.
But that's heuchera, especially the spring, because you want to do it when it's not too woody, because they do get, like, their crowns kind of get a little. You'll have to see when you get in there, but it's a little bit different. So
yes. Some other ones would be like we talked about Shasta daisies, and
Lariop, we talked about that.
Yep, we have.
I was talking about pulmonary blooming in your garden. You could do that. I'm not going to touch yours right now. It looks awesome.
But it's something that you can't be afraid of.
I know.
And it'll bounce back so quickly that you won't even know that you've done it. Which I need to do that because it is looking so good. I need to spread the love.
Ligularia, salvias, perennial salvias, not your Shasta daisies, we talked about that. Veronicas, yarrows, on and on and on. So, and then some, are just as durable, maybe require a little bit more gentler handling, I guess, if you say that. Like Baptisia and Brunnerer.
So you just have to be really careful with Baptisia because it has the really deep roots. So that's one that you're going to have to dig really deep to get down. Not really a tap root, but just really, really deep roots. So you want to go ahead and do that in the spring, but make sure that you get really deep, and then you're going to water afterwards.
Your hellebores you would divide right after they bloom, if needed.
Yes. So, because those bloom so early, wait until after they finish blooming, and then you can move those around. And then Japanese anemones.
Oh, yeah. Bleeding hearts. Yep.
Again, bleeding hearts, you're going to wait until after they bloom. We talked about the ornamental grasses. We've done a really good job with that. Some of the ground covers, you and I were talking about that earlier. We've got lots of ajuga. In fact, if anybody out there wants ajuga, please let me know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all those ground...
And lamium.
All those, lamium, it goes crazy. Ajuga, vinca, periwinkle, sedum, any of this creeping sedums. They're super easy. I mean, Lord, you can just break off a piece and they'll root if you don't even feel like
we have several of them.
Yeah,
several areas.
that's how I seed a lot of the green roofs. I mean, a lot of them they'll actually seed just from cuttings. They'll just put the medium down and just broadcast cuttings, and then the cuttings will root. They don't even try to like put them actual plants in sometimes.
Which, I mean, it is convenient. I mean, it's nice to have a ground cover that will take off so easily. But just remember that if you don't want it in an area, make sure that you don't drop cuttings as you walk through the area.
And I guess just a good summary too to avoid, things we already mentioned this, but avoid dividing in the spring would be your peonies.
Oh, wait till fall.
Yeah, irises, lavenders, Asclepius. We talked about the butterfly weed.
Mm-hmm.
So just again summarize that.
Okay. So do you think we've covered dividing perennials in the spring?
Probably more than we needed to.
Not more than we needed to. It's a very good topic, and it's one that I think a lot of people maybe don't take advantage of.
Well, and it just again, it helps increase the vigor of the plants, gives you better performance in the garden. Plus, you get free plants.
I love it.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And then the next thing you'll start doing is maybe doing some cuttings, and you'll really get into it.
Yes, we'll talk about that another time. So thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. Please subscribe or follow to get new episode updates. And please help us get the word out about the new podcast by dropping a rating or review, or tell your friends.
If you have any questions on landscape gardening or horticulture, please send them to gwtg@boonegardner.com. That's Gardening with the Gardeners, gwtg@boone, Gardiner, don't forget the I, Gardner.com. Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.